TRS.
10, Big 550 KTRS. All right, we have had, can only be described as a painful 24 hours on my part. We've had Tony Messenger bail last minute. We had John Deal early this morning bail last minute. So we've got two wonderful ladies here at the table here for today's board meeting on what can only be described as a bizarro day. Jane Duker, you're a Democratic consultant. You're also an attorney. You're also a former chief of staff to Governor Holden. Good morning.
Good morning, McGraw.
Also joining us now is somebody new to the show, State Rep Stacey Newman, a Democrat from the Clayton area. Is that correct?
University City, Richmond Heights. You're sitting in my district right now.
We are in our, we didn't get the welcome wagon, did not come and welcome us.
Where's the basket?
Yes,
to the
I'm
neighborhood?
basket,
Nothing.
right.
Nothing. It's outrageous.
No,
What's
they should
going
be
on?
giving it to her.
Exactly. I'm your state representative.
Yeah.
Wait, she should be sweet talking to us, even though we don't live here, though.
Oh, see, you have it backwards. After yesterday, now public officials are entitled to, have people treat them in a certain way.
Well,
So,
ladies and gentlemen, let's get
landscape
right to it.
changed.
The Fannie Lou Hamer Democratic Coalition comes out. Jane, we'll start with you, and announces that they are no longer going to, so it's a new coalition, and they're going to support Rick Stream over Steve Stenger.
Yep.
What is going on with your Democratic Party?
Well, I mean, I think, we have a fringe group, and basically it's sort of organized by some Dooley staffers. Sort of a sour grape situation, and they've come out to support somebody who has voted, for their entire career, has voted to do things that hurt not only the minority community, but the bulk of women, working families, and, completely against the values of St. Louis County. So it's sort of, I think it's more of a revenge move as opposed to something that's about principle. And the thing that was really hard to look at was you have these people get up and talk about, how they've been disrespected by other officials. And it really seems to me it ought to be more about the constituents and not about, how they feel as public officials. And, you don't demand respect, you earn it. And so I think it was disappointing.
How many votes can this coalition deliver to Rick Stream?
That's a good question. I just, given that this is sort of the tenor of this is sort of, we're going to redo the primary. They didn't have a lot of success doing it then, and I'm not sure that they're going to have any success doing it now. What I find really interesting about this, though, is not that sort of happened, because I think Mike Jones, who was one of Dooley's senior advisors, has been basically saying that they were going to do this. So it's not that it's a surprise. But what surprised me is, so now you have Rick Stream, who's the opponent to Steve Stenger, who now is basically denouncing McCullough, but endorsing this group, and, in with this group who's basically, the Dooley people. So we denounce McCullough, we endorse Dooley. It's sort of a very weird juxtaposition for his base.
Has Rick Stream denounced Bob McCullough?
He told McCullough that he should reconsider about stepping down, which is, to me, the same thing.
But he hasn't said that publicly.
Yes, he has.
Oh, he has said that publicly.
Numerous times. He
Okay.
should reconsider, and in the future, we shouldn't have prosecutors. We should have special prosecutors in these circumstances. So he's been very clear. And so, I think people are talking about, the Democratic base, but what they're neglecting to see is that the Republican base now is looking at Rick Stream saying, wait a minute, we voted out Dooley. And we support Bob McCullough. We support the legal process that's in place for the Michael Brown case. And you're abandoning, you're endorsing Dooley and you're denouncing McCullough.
But hold on a second. Is Rick Stream really becoming Democratic, or is Rick Stream saying what he has to say
This
to get
guy
elected?
is incapable of becoming Democratic. There is not a single wacko Republican vote that he hasn't sided with the party. And that's what's really distressing, is this coalition is going to support this guy who, on every single, from Sharia law to Agenda 21, to getting rid of background checks, to nullifying gun laws, to, the war on women, every single vote has been wacko Republican. And why these people believe that he can say no now after 12 years it's sad. It's mind-numbing.
You need to stop saying Sharia law and being so. If you're against Sharia law, that means you're in favor of Sharia law.
Well, which is the whole nonsense of it. But what's interesting is that was prompted by an email that Rick Stream sent to all his colleagues in the House that was talking about radical Islam. I mean, It was an anti-Muslim email that he sent to his colleagues like in May of 2013. It wasn't like 20 years ago so he could say I was young and stupid. It was a year ago.
What about Malik Shabazz? Is Malik Shabazz part of the new Black Panther Party and the Nation of Islam? Is he in this group as well?
That's a good question, because I think if they were aware of his sort of anti-Muslim views, I think they would question what they are doing. And so, so I think these issues are coming out now. I think you saw that this coalition was basically unable to defend Rick Stream's record, and I think we'll see some more of that.
Stacey Newman, you work with State Rep Courtney Curtis, who was on the show. You work with Rick Stream down there. What are your thoughts as you watch all this?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. It's evident. There is a voting record by Representative Rick Stream. For 8 solid years, he has voted consistently, with the Todd Akin, wing of the Republican Party in terms of voter suppression. We've had voter ID bills almost every single year the last 8 years. He also has voted consistently with the NRA in terms of secretly arming teachers, nullifying gun laws, or federal gun laws, and even abolishing local ordinances that communities here in St. Louis County have enacted to prohibit open carry of any weapon. Rick Stream has solidly voted against these measures. We also know that St. Louis County voters have also voted not to have these, and Rick Stream has voted for them. It's pretty clear in terms of policy and which side of the conservative agenda Rick Stream's on.
The African American community has been a solidly Democratic bloc for generations. Mm-hmm. What has it gotten them?
Well, with people like, we have minority participation that wasn't there before. I think we have, the county council, for example, passed that they want Medicaid expansion in order to get health insurance to working Missourians, and Rick Stream has stopped that. But the Democrats have consistently fought for that. Democrats have prevented, voter suppression. Democrats have prevented, adding guns to our streets, which we don't need more of right now. And I think local communities should have more control over the guns that come into their communities. You talk to Mayor Slay and you have Republicans saying, take care of crime. The Democrats are horrible because they don't take care of crime. But yet they're the ones that are flooding guns into our community, and we can't say no to it now, which is, it's insane. So public education. Rick Stream wants to dismantle community schools. Get rid of the neighborhoods, let them transfer, let's get them out of there, let's get all the kids out of there, and then we don't have a community school in these neighborhoods. And everyone knows that community schools are anchors for communities. So, on every single major issue, education, health, welfare, everything, Democrats have been supporting the minority community. And that's what makes it sad that this is happening and that they're willing to abandon their principles to make a point. Political retribution is never a good political strategy. And whatever you want to say about voters do see through that. At some point they say, wait a minute, this is like about me.
Is this about Ferguson or is this about Dooley?
I think it's about Dooley.
So even if Ferguson didn't happen, would this coalition have come together and supported Rick Stream?
I don't think so, because if you look at who was there, the only councilwoman who supports Dooley, Hazel Irby.
Right.
And then you have, the PR person is Pat Washington, who's the county spokesperson, which is kind of ridiculous. And Mike Jones, who's a senior policy advisor for Dooley, sort of orchestrated this group. And then another spokesperson for them is Steve Webb, who's a former state rep who was prosecuted by Bob McCullough, and he pled guilty to stealing campaign funds. So, and they were very clear yesterday that the disrespect was the fact that somebody had the nerve to, primary him and to win. And so, they don't mention Ferguson. That's the sad truth. Disenfranchising people right now after Ferguson is not what we want to do.
Stacey Newman, how many votes can this coalition deliver?
Boy, I don't know. And, part of what Jane said, too, is you have to be organized. You have to be on the ground and you have to make the case to the voters. And I don't think the voters are going to get the message that Rick Stream cares about them. We've already gone through these issues because of Rick Stream's own voting record. In terms of voter suppression, I don't know how voter suppression does nothing but harm the minority community in terms of the senior community, the women's community, all of them. We already know that for a fact. That's where Rick Stream stands. as Jane mentioned, guns, public education, everything. So there's nothing that Rick Stream brings to this coalition that they actually advocate.
Or
So
it's
again,
a deal. I
how
mean, the
many-
thing that concerns me is, so is he negotiating? I mean, is the Dooley administration going to continue under Rick Stream? I mean, what else? If you're going to abandon every fundamental principle of your group, of your community, what are you getting for it? Please tell me you're getting something for it. But they won't say what it is.
There's if we know that if you're a very conservative person and somebody says something, some liberal says something nice about your candidate, that questions the person's conservative who's conservative. Say, hey, wait a minute, do I really want to vote for Senator Blunt if he says something nice about liberals or says something nice, right? So my question is,
This is a little different than that, though.
Hold on a second. How many Tea Party votes, conservative votes are going to look at Rick Stream and say, hey, wait a minute, you're being supported by North County groups that want Bob McCullough out, and you're being supported by them. I'm a right-wing conservative, normally like Rick Stream. I have to question this new action, and maybe I'll either sit out or vote for Stanger.
Well, and it's interesting because I do think that the political dynamic of that, I think, might be accurate. That I think that if county voters are like, wait a minute, what kind of deal did this guy make in order to get these people where, like, for example, when they crossed over in the primary, they didn't cross over. I mean, Steve Stenger didn't abandon his Democratic principles in order to attract these voters into the primary. I mean, so Rick Stream is actually, it appears that he's actually, sort of changing colors in order to do this where that didn't happen before. So yes, I think he runs a risk, but I think that's what makes this so, it's one thing for when you work with somebody on the other side of the aisle, which is always a good thing. I mean, bipartisanship is always a good thing, but you don't give up your values to do that. That's the difference here is what values are people giving up in order to sort of make this alliance, and people don't trust that.
I got to break, but hold on a second.
Yeah.
What's so terrible about hiring or appointing a special prosecutor for this in this one special case?
Do you want to talk about that now, or you want to do it before the
Quickly,
break?
what's so terrible about it?
Well, because one, there's no legal reason why the elected prosecutor, you don't take away an elected official because you disagree with the decision. Because if that were the case, Rick Stream would have been gone a long time ago because county voters have disagreed with his votes. You don't do that. There is no legal reason. The rule of law applies here. And there is no legal reason why Bob McCullough should be replaced. So why are we going to abandon the process? And I just don't think that once you go down that path, well, then at what point do we just tell all electeds that, they have to give up their seats if they do something that there's a certain amount of people that don't like it?
That's Jane Duker, also Stacey Newman. We're just getting started. We want to talk about the tweet, the grand jury, and everything else in the news. 9:23 here.